Welcome to another edition of the We Talk Chelsea podcast with Tom, Charlie, and back from his excursions to America just as he flies back home, the Chelsea squad fly back out. I just think it wasn't meant to be Timber, joining the squad, pre-season training with the Blues. What a week it's been. Another week that's flown by and a lot of news to get through today. So let's get cracking. First of all, welcome back, Timber. We hope you enjoyed your holidays. We did not mention you at all. No ill words were spoken of you. Leaving us in the lurch. You had all right. That was Charlie. Charlie made me do it. He made me do it. But yeah, welcome to the We Talk Chelsea podcast, a podcast of three Sunday League playing football players united by a love of Chelsea Football Club. What a week it has been. I think the key thing we'll probably start with is let's look at departures. I think again. The thing with Chelsea, you're never far from an absolute shit show, and this Lukaku mess is it's borderline funny. Like, it all went very, very quickly. Rumors that we're like an agreed deal in principle to go to Inter. Inter coming for a low offer of 30 million euros, and then Chelsea said no, we want 40, so they offered us 35 with 5 in add-ons. All agreed, and then until Inter Milan find out that before the Champions League final with Manchester City, Lukaku was sounding out, a deal with Juventus, and so now Inter completely gone. So there's literally only one club in for him at the moment, and it is Juventus, and it's entirely dependent on Dusan Vlahovic going to PSG or potentially coming in the direction to ourselves. Yeah. But if you look at this Lukaku situation, it is absolutely funny. He kind of does these type of things wherever he goes. You notice this recently, like there's a post that's been doing the rounds on social media that at every club he's played for, he's kissed the badge. At every single club he's played for, he's kissed it at Chelsea, he's kissed it at Man United, he's kissed it at Everton, he kissed it at West Brom, he's kissed it at Inter Milan, he's kissed it at every single club he's played for. Like, is he potentially the most disloyal player in modern football? Could he be?
Go on, Charlie. I'll let you go first.
I mean, it's a headache, isn't it? The Lukaku situation for us, and it has been. And this is pre-Boehly, and Boehly created a lot of headaches. But this is a thing that's is way pre-Boehly, and it's still there, and it's just. Look, the guy doesn't want to play for us. We signed him on the contract that, thank God, it wasn't a 7-year contract like Boehly would have given him. It's just a 5-year, I think?
It's a 5-year deal at 325 grand a week. So, money well spent.
I mean, after 6 months, he basically threw the towel in. And
it wasn't even that long before he did that interview with Inter. He did it in December, and his announcement was it in August time we announced him, towards the end of August? Or was it like halfway through the month? Because he played against, I think, Arsenal was one of his first games, wasn't it?
No, it was right at the end of the window. I mean, it was virtually the last. It was the last day of the window, I think, when we signed him. From what I could remember,
no, I think it was mid-August, but
regardless, it was right at the beginning of the season. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And within a few months, he's changed his mind, and this it is a grinding issue because there are players that are in our squad that are getting paid a lot less than this guy. In fact, the whole squad is. Let's face it. And look, we just need to. It has to just go away. It can't be that difficult to just sell him somewhere, or even just sell him for nothing. It really doesn't matter. He's not very good, I don't think.
The problem that you have with selling him for nothing is you got to recoup. It's all financial fair play. You got to recoup some sort of fee. You can't let him go, and then all of a sudden, you've got a 97.5 million black hole that you've got to try and fill. You essentially you've got to fill that with something. You can't spend that amount of money. You've got to sell to then, balance the books. And, if you can get 40 million for Lukaku, it'd be perfect. It'd be ideal. The fact that he's not going to go back out on loan again just shows that he's got no interest to being like at the club itself. And that, he doesn't, he's not even part of Potter's plans, Tim. I mean, Lukaku, is he, I know it's a big chunk of change, but is he the biggest waste of money that Chelsea's spent? Let's just say in the last 20 years, like since Roman Abramovich was brought in, when we, were throwing money about willy-nilly.
Yes, in the terms of if you look at transfer fee and everything included, sort of yeah, I would probably say he is the biggest waste of money we've ever spent. However, if we do recruit 40 million, from what I understand anyway, depends on the payment plan. On our books, it won't look like such a loss if we sell him for about 40 million, because obviously the transfer is amortized through years. Whatever he's worth right now, which is about 40 million apparently.
Apparently.
We've basically paid 20 million off last year and the year before, so there's probably another 3 years to go on his contract. So if we get that good 40 million, it won't look like such a big red, like it won't go on the red in terms of FFP and when whoever comes to look at our books. But in terms of just straight transfer fee, he is probably the biggest waste of money we've ever spent, I think, because he made about, I think I was talking to Dale before, and I mentioned he made about 27 starts in that game when we had about 60 something games that season of the Tuchel, I think it was.
Yeah, I know it's 26 league games.
Yeah.
In that season.
And 16 were league starts, and most of those probably would have been before he made those comments, before January. And then obviously post that, I think there was like 7 or 8 Premier League games in a row he was on the bench, and he played was it the FA Cup final, or was it the Capital One Cup final? One of the two.
The one where he had disallowed goal. He came on one of them, definitely, because he had a disallowed goal. I think that was a Carabao Cup.
Yeah. And I remember most of his appearances were pretty much off the bench, and he even the game against, who was it, Crystal Palace, where he had 7 or 8 touches during the game. Just as soon as he came out of that interview, I think he ruined his own Chelsea career there. He didn't need to make those comments. We seemed to be doing fine. I think we'd just played Aston Villa away at the time. We won 2-1. And then that interview came out. Then the next home game, he looked a bit wish-washy, a bit shaky. And then ever since then, it's just not looked the same for him at Chelsea. And obviously at Inter Milan, he's gone back to where he thought was home. And, he didn't really quite start out well. I believe he wasn't quite fit to begin with. And then...
Shocking.
Yeah. But again, and even Thierry Henry, if you remember him talking on the World Cup thing, he was saying he didn't understand why Lukaku went back to Chelsea. Chelsea didn't play to Lukaku's strengths, so it was more of an emotional thing of why he went back. And it kind of shows you the hypocriticism of Lukaku himself, because he went back to Chelsea for the emotion, and then 6 months later, he doesn't want to be anymore at Chelsea. So, yeah, it just shows you the kind of guy he is, I suppose. He's kind of a guy who probably acts on impulse. If I feel good, I am good. If I don't feel good, I'm going to throw all my toys out the pram and, create a scene, create havoc. And, yeah, that's all he's been so far, I think.
Yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned is it'd be really, really fascinating to really properly look into the business side of things in terms like amortization. I'm assuming, so does that mean if we get 40 million for him, because there's still 97 million to pay, does that 40 million then have to be paid directly to Inter Milan over a period of time? Is that how it works?
Whoever the selling club is, as soon as we sell him, we won't. That chunk that we have left to pay to Inter Milan will come off. It will go straight away. So whatever's left of that payment will come off straight away due to his new club, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right.
So
sort of. I think I get it.
So let's just say Juventus buy him now for 40 million, depending on how much we've paid off for Lukaku.
Let's say 40. Let's say 40 million.
Yeah.
That 20 million a year, 100 divided by 5, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Plus wages, obviously, but that's something the club obviously pay. And so if we get that fee, it looks good on our books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an absolute, to put it mildly, an absolute shit show when you look at it. Like the fact that we had the option, we were in for two strikers in that window. We could have gone for Lukaku or we could have gone for Haaland. And they were the two strikers in that window that were available. They were available for purchase, and we chose to go with Lukaku.
And the funniest thing is, right, I sent you something the other day, lads, and I know it's from the Sun, but it was just it was a breakdown of the biggest transfer flops of the whole Premier League era.
But
And
they also said
every
Enzo Fernandez is a flop as well. I have to put that. Listen,
well,
it's been
okay,
5 months.
we don't know yet, but for the money, for the money that we've paid, I still to this day don't think he's worth that amount of money. I keep saying it, but I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he's worth 105 million.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress on Enzo, but it's we have such a when we invest very, very heavily, and it moves us to another player in question, another incoming. When we invest heavily, it doesn't tend to work out. I don't know if you noticed this. We tend to do better with some of the smaller signings, which leads me to Moises Caicedo. Initially we had personal terms have been agreed now for what feels like weeks upon weeks. He's come out himself saying it's hard to turn down a club like Chelsea. It's literally down to Chelsea and Brighton agreeing terms, agreeing a payment structure. Brighton, it appears, have moved the goalposts. They've gone from, we'll accept 80 million. We initially offered 70. And now they've gone, well, if Declan Rice is going for 105 million, well, Moises Caicedo is worth 100 million at least. It's just Brighton to get a bit too big for their boots. But, I mean, Tam, do you think, given our record, let's just look at our previous outlays. Lukaku, Enzo, still on the fence about Enzo. It's hard to say. Mudryk is a big outlay. Again, still young, still on the fence. But if you look at players that we've invested heavily, like the Moratas, the Fernando Torreses at the time, Kepa, it doesn't tend to go well for us a lot of the time. And that's why, is Caicedo going to be worth it? I mean, I know we're particularly light in midfield, but is it worth making such a risky investment at this stage?
Yeah, I think it's 100% important we make a statement signing, to be honest. I don't know if you've seen the reports, but even a lot of the players apparently, well, if you believe the reports, obviously, a lot of the players were kind of want assurances that, we are going to sign players and strengthen our squad. Because if you look at the drop off of our team last season, and with the amount of outgoings, you do need to kind of reverse it with incomings. You can't rely on a team that's not got a lot of football experience, full stop. Enzo, he's been playing in Europe for six months, 6 or 12 months, whatever it is, and next to him you'll have Conor Gallagher again, who hasn't got a massive experience at the top level. We have defenders who are just coming in, such as Levi Cole. We'll probably have a right back, Malo Gusto, who's barely played, first team football as well. And a striker in Nicholas Jackson and Armando Broja, again, players who haven't got a lot of experience. So you're relying on the likes of your Raheem Sterlings and maybe even Caicedo again, but he hasn't even played a lot.
He's a young man.
Exactly. So this is an investment for the future, but it's kind of what I was going to delve into, is that we also do need to buy experienced players, because you can't have every midfielder being a young player. We've got Chukwuemeka, we've got
in our midfield, we got Enzo Fernandez, Conor Gallagher, Carney Chukwuemeka, Tina Anjurin, Lewis Hall, and Andrey Santos.
Yeah. And
the oldest player is Conor Gallagher.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And guess what? It's not FIFA. It's not, and this is what people have to realize is, Conor Gallagher could probably pick the top corner much better than the majority of older midfielders. But someone like a James Milner, not him particularly, but someone like him. Yeah, you're gonna laugh.
But the thing is,
someone like him, every now and then, you need to buy these sort of players. We've had it in the past, and look, you could look at any team in the world who have done this sort of thing. You have to buy these older guys sometimes on a free, like just for a year, a couple of years. We did it with Thiago Silva. Yeah, it's worked really nicely. Yeah, Mykhailo when we were, that was a great signing. We've had them over the years. These sort of players where you just buy them and we don't seem to be doing that. We don't. There are players available at the moment, believe it or not. I read the paper and I'm looking at them going, I wouldn't mind having that bloke just for a year at Chelsea. Just for a year. Just one player.
Unfortunately, I know there's one player in particular, but I don't think we can afford £700,000 a week and compete with Al Ittifaq to get Jordan Henderson at Chelsea.
No, look, Jordan Henderson.
I'm just busting your chops, Charlie. I'm just busting your chops.
He's just one player that I've always admired, but there are other players around. Look what Man United did with Casemiro, for example. I don't think Casemiro is going to be around forever. I think it's a 2 or 3 year plan for that guy. He'll be there next season. He'll probably go. I reckon he'll probably go at the end of next season, right? But what an effect he's made, even though he keeps getting injured and getting sent off. It doesn't matter because he's made a massive effect on that midfield. He's brought on a lot of the other players around him. And I don't know. I just think like we seem to be we're putting all our eggs in these
in
baskets,
that youth basket,
youth, and it just doesn't seem like we're actually understanding that we've sold the old guys, the old guard. You've got to replace them somehow, even if it's just temporary. You've got to replace them.
Especially when you're looking at, if the rumours are led to believe, Tembo, with players like Lewis Hall and Carney Chukwuemeka going out on loan this season, it leaves us even more light in that midfield area. And you are right. Charlie is right. You are right. We need experience. We really do need some experience in that midfield because admittedly we've got rid of like the Jorginhos who wasn't going to have his contract extended. We got some money for him. We've lost Mount. We've lost Havertz that apparently can play there. We've lost Kante. He's a big loss. Like I know there's an issue in terms of his fitness, but that is an experienced player that players around him can learn from. Caicedo coming through is another 21-year-old.
Yeah.
If two of these players are going out on loan and you're looking at that area where we're playing 4-2-3-1, it's looking like that. They're currently in training for. We've got two players that are going to be there at the moment. It's looking like it could be Enzo Fernandez and Conor Gallagher, like going around in that respect, or Enzo Fernandez, and Moises Caicedo playing in those like double pivot role. But if one of them gets injured, then what? Who do we go to? Who's realistically somebody that you would like to see that's got somewhat of an experienced head that's got be able to play and slot in and guide these players because they're kind of without guidance at the moment.
Yeah, that's the difficult question. I don't really have an answer to that, unfortunately. Usually I would poke around and have a look, but that is a good question. Like, who do we go for? Who is available?
I mean, if you can look, there's now bloated squads in like other areas, but when you look for an experienced player, like you look at clubs that have a lot of like bloated squads, so you would look to like La Ligas really, like Real Madrid. Their midfield is, could we go for somebody like Toni Kroos? Could Toni Kroos be like realistically? Is he somebody that's now too old, or is it somebody that you would go in that area because they need to put their shift into somebody youthful? It's a messed up situation because one injury and you're buggered. You're back, where we were in the middle of the season when Potter was in charge and we had no midfielders. Like zero.
Yeah. And you just think about it. There's obviously going to be games where you are 1-0 up, and people say, "Oh, bring Gallagher on and get him to chase the ball or whatever." But there's going to be games where Enzo and Caicedo might need to come off, both of them, or one's not available and the other one's, lacking a bit of fitness or whatnot. So you do need that extra cover. I don't think Chukwuemeka is that type of player. Lewis Hall doesn't seem to be that type of player either. So you need an experienced head. Someone like a Gundogan or something of that experience.
Honestly,
Gundogan was the man. He was the one.
I'm shocked we didn't try and get him. I really am shocked we didn't try and get him.
Yeah, I don't.
Bernardo Silva. I mean, there's players out there who are winners. We've sold, out of that Champions League squad, we've just sold everyone basically, and all we've got left now is Silva, Azpilicueta. No, he's gone. I mean, who is it? Silva, Reece James, and Chilwell, right? And Sterling is probably the only one I would say who's actually like a winner, an experienced winner. The rest of the first team haven't won anything.
Enzo,
pretty much.
probably.
And Pochettino, when he got to that Champions League final, look, I hate to moan about it, but when he got to the Champions League final against Liverpool, the reason why they didn't win the game was because they had such a young team. It was the same.
Yeah.
That team that he was playing at the time, yes, Kane is a great player now, and Son's a great player now, but at the time they were in their mid-20s. They were young lads. Dele Alli, it was a young team running through that. I just think that's going to be the end of us. And you've got even in the goalkeepers, we've got Kepa's the oldest goalkeeper, and he's not a goal. He's not a come on. He's not going to win it. That guy. He's not a world class goalkeeper.
Yeah,
normally you have a Caballero or Kevin Hitchcock or someone on the bench who's there.
Yeah.
But we had
Neil Sullivan at one point.
Exactly. Yeah. But he's actually he's supposed to be the senior one. This is what I'm trying to say. It's all a bit wrong. It doesn't quite balance.
It is bizarre when you look at it in that situation. If 4-2-3 wants to be believed, that double pivot, somebody holding Moises Caicedo, freeing up Enzo Fernandez to push forward, we have to factor in one of these two players is probably going to get injured at some point in the season, whether it be a knock, a strain. It happens. And with Chelsea, it's going to happen. But Dale here saying, I'm throwing a suggestion out there, but what about Ward-Prowse? He's experienced in the Premier League and late 20s, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's not a bad shout.
I've said this for ages.
It adds depth. It does add depth, and it does add experience in that area. And we're not playing in Europe. We're only playing in the league. We have to factor that in as well. And free kicks, we've been absolutely dreadful at free kicks and set pieces for the last couple of seasons.
I think he's one of those players, though. In a year's time, you think, what a waste of a signing. Just the same as Danny Drinkwater. I don't think he's exactly what we need. He's not a very mobile player.
What if he's available on, 10 million, 15 million?
It's probably going to be 20 million.
It is.
If a club like Chelsea were to come in for him at Southampton, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to play in Championship or do you want to play for Chelsea?" Like, he'd probably push through for it and say, "Go on."
Nah. Sorry.
I don't think it's an entirely bad suggestion, but there is. I was thinking about this as well. Granit, he's already signed. He's gone to Rome.
See, I would have taken him.
No, Gladbach.
Not sure where he's gone, but he's another one where I would have taken him. Just for a year, couple of years.
It's
chuck him in there.
It's if he would have signed. That's the thing. I think that cross thing.
And that's the thing as well with these backup players, because you have to think about it. They will. It's a good point you kind of raised, because they will know that they have to be backup. We've just invested 105 million in Enzo, and potentially 100 million in Caicedo. So these guys know, I'm not here to start. I'm here to play a bench role, or at least my game time is going to be limited, because these two guys have cost such a big transfer fee. So the likeliness of me starting is going to be quite low compared to a normal season or whatever sort of stance. So it does need to be an experienced old head. Do I think James Ward-Prowse is the answer? Not quite. Not quite sure he's the player or type of profile we need. He could be. I could be wrong, but I just don't see it. I would rather someone like Amrabat, if you've seen him from Morocco.
From Fiorentina.
Yeah. Apparently he's quite available on a cheap deal. So
relatively low. I think the only game I saw him play was against West Ham, and he looked okay.
He was fantastic. To be fair, he locked out Declan Rice, and that's
not hard though, is it?
Oh.
Not hard to lock him out. You know what I mean?
Declan Rice, that was we missed out last year on him.
I think we lost out. I mean, I watched the Diary of a CEO podcast with Frank Lampard, and obviously he wanted Declan Rice in his first tenure. He wanted him there at that time. That's what he wanted him, and he wanted to sign him to be Chelsea captain. for the next 10 years. And for whatever reason, it just didn't come to fruition. I think if the club had tried harder, I think they really probably could have got a Declan Rice. We let him go. He had his best friend at the club at the time. And I think it's just a couple of seasons too late to get something like Declan Rice. Even down to players like Ruben Neves from Wolves. He's not particularly mobile, but he's that player that you can play in that position. But we've lost him to the Saudi money. I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't know if this is something that solves some of the issues that we have in the centre back position. So obviously we've got 5 centre backs now. Levi Colwill coming in, and Charlie and Temba. I think you watched the podcast when you were living up in Vegas. You watched the podcast, and we were thinking, well, how do you solve a problem like Trevoh Chalobah? And he's not that he's a problem himself. It's just he deserves to play, but the problem is there's 4 centre backs. I suggested potentially send him out on loan for a year and having him come back in once Thiago Silva inevitably leaves at the end of next season. But Trevoh Chalobah has played as a defensive midfielder. Is he going to be would he potentially be the new kind of Loftus-Cheek that would be able to fill in that position of the right back and the utility, potentially through the middle as well? Like if Caicedo was to get injured, if we do sign him, could he fill in that position that still allow Enzo Fernandez to push forward? Do you think that's something that would be considered?
I think, and I'll put a little reference. You remember that one game in 2015 we played Spurs and Mourinho put Zuma in midfield?
No.
It was the Carabao Cup final.
I do not remember.
I was probably there. That's probably why I can't remember.
we JT scored and Diego Costa scored, and we won the Carabao Cup.
Was he fantastic in that game?
I was probably there, but
no. But what I'm trying to say is basically it's one of those. Chalobah reminds me of one of those players. You put him in a position like that just as a one-off, to man mark someone or to deal with someone special. I don't think it should be a thing of where he should be playing every week, because the thing is with Chalobah, I think he's still learning the game. If you look at the mistakes he made last season and the season before, when was it against Mane season before where he recklessly took him out and it was 1-on-1 or something like that?
Yeah.
And then there was obviously last season where he dove in recklessly for the challenge against Real Madrid, where Rodrigo had skinned him on the line, things like that. He has a lot of brain farts, and I don't think as a defensive midfielder, that's ideally what you need. You need a calm head, someone who's confident on the ball as well as off the ball.
But would he be a defensive midfielder? Because if look at the way. Let's just use Spurs as an example, like 4-2-3-1, that Spurs team. The reason Eric Dyer plays as a centre-back now is because he was playing as a central defensive midfielder for Pochettino and essentially became a de facto centre-back. So he'd move into that position. So it frees up, say, Reece James and Ben Chilwell. They then become a 3-4-3 in attack. And they overlap the wings. And then it just means Chalobah just fills in and then he plays a back 3 when we're in possession. But when we're out of possession, he pushes up into midfield to create that extra man. Is that not an area that could potentially be exploited?
I haven't seen enough of him to say he's got a good passing range either. That's another thing I think you need as a midfielder. I think Colwell's got the best passing range out of all of our centre backs, if anything, or Badiashile.
But would he not just be used as purely as a utility man to press, win the ball, lay off to Enzo, lay off to Colwell to take the ball forwards?
Again, like I say, I have not seen enough of him to say he's a ball winner in terms of being aggressive, and I think he's still learning the game. He's still not a finished product, may you say, and there's still a long way for him to go, and I just have not seen enough of him to say I'm confident enough of him to to have a role like that. I think you need a specialist who's good at winning the ball and just slowing the game down a bit. And that's where an experienced head would probably do a lot more good than someone like Chalobah.
I mean, another player that has played in that position before, and I think he's done it for Wales, is a player that is now leaving. Ethan Ampadu signing to Leeds United. It appears for 7 million with add-ons. A player that we bought for 2.5 million. I think he made a very handful amount of appearances for Chelsea, mostly in pre-season games. I think he played 1 or 2 games. could Ethan Ampadu have been that player just to be knowing that they're going to be the reserve player to sit on the bench and come in? He is a centre back by trade, but he does play as a central defensive midfielder. Charlie, is that something that we should be utilising, or should we have just cashed in now? Even though we are turning in a profit selling Ethan Ampadu for 7 million, we add 4.5 million to the transfer pile.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but the way that the way that you've got to play the game at the top is you either win it or you don't. And unfortunately, he didn't quite cut it at the top level. And he'll probably, where's he gone? Leeds, is it?
Leeds, yeah, looks like
Leeds, yeah. So he'll get a game at Leeds, but he would never have got a game. Unfortunately, it's for him as a player. You can't blame him. He's got to do what's right for him, and he's got to get on with his career. Because the thing is, at Chelsea, we have high standards, and we should do. We should have these high standards, and it's good that we do have high standards. But at the same time, of course, you do have to make these hard decisions. And again, Chalobah, going back to that, I don't honestly. I love the guy, I really do, but I just don't think he's quite good enough, unfortunately. We want to be winning Premier Leagues, we want to be winning Champions League. I just don't think in the big games, in those big moments, does he have the clutch? Does he have the real, under pressure to perform? I just don't think he does. He's got mistakes in him, and he's not he's not that young. I'm sorry, I know he's a lot younger than me, but he's not unfortunately that young anymore.
Yeah,
he's 23, 24, isn't he? And unfortunately, when you get to about 20, if people don't look at you and go, you're world class, then you're probably never going to make it. It's as sad as it is, but that's the way it is.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I think a key thing is the pre-season games to get some sort of inclination about how Chelsea might line up when we come to play Liverpool on the opening day of the season. Chelsea, we'll touch upon this. So Chelsea have flown a 29-man squad out to the United States for the pre-season tour, taking on Wrexham and some other teams. I genuinely don't know off the top of my head. I just know Wrexham were playing them because they're popular in America. Looking like as well that Wesley Fofana is staying behind due to issues with his knee, and Reece James left behind as precaution due to a hamstring issue, a common thing that we're experiencing from Reece James. When this was announced in the WhatsApp group, I think Temba put it in, and then there was like a conversation back and forth between you and Charlie because I didn't see it, and I got in, and Charlie said, "All right, Reece James, sell him, cash in, may as well. He can't be trusted to play all these games. Like we're probably going to get 20 games a season out of him at this point onwards, but this is the player we may as well just cash in for, get 90 million for him from like a Real Madrid or someone that's interested in him, cash in and find somebody else." I mean, I see the logic, and I think Temba, you had a bit of you're generally the one that would want to keep in there, but you also said like you kind of see the logic behind it. However, this is exactly why Malo Gusto was signed for this exact situation. I mean, when that was explained to you, Charlie, do you still agree with the fact that we should cash in on Reece James? I know he is considered proper Chelsea, potentially a future club captain, but is Reece James somebody that we should potentially look at moving on if he just can't stay fit? That's his main issue when he does play. And at the end of last season, he was pretty pedestrian, but I think a lot of that could be argued that a lot of the players were.
Look, I love Reece James is, as you say, it's proper Chelsea. Love Reece James. I'd love, in my head, I'd love to dream that he'd one day be a Chelsea captain and lead us to glory. But the thing is, if you have a player that can only play, and you've got to remember, last season we didn't play that many games, funnily enough, because we got knocked out of the FA Cup in the first round, the League Cup in the first round, and the Champions League after probably about 8 games, something like that, right? So it's hard to how do you sort of how does a guy like that who played let's say we played 60 games. Let's say last season at the most, I would say, and I reckon Reece James played 20, and out of those 20, 5 or 6 of them he wasn't fit for anyway. I just don't, if that happens again next season, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't sell him. if someone's prepared to pay 80, 90 million, then he has to go. Sorry. Like, and I love Reece James, but you know, you're not really worth anything for us. We're trying to win trophies on a hospital bench. Sorry.
Are we not, Tim? Would you say, are we not strengthening another side by selling Reece James? Like, is Malo Gusto coming in to say, do you know what? Yes, you're coming in as a number 2, but given the injury record of Reece James, you're very likely to play. Is it something where you think, okay, well, if Malo Gusto comes through, has an absolute barnstorming season this season, and then Reece James continues his kind of injury woes, is that something to cash in on? Because I'm looking at it across for his last 3 years. Ideally, like the first year he made 37 appearances, second 47, 39, and then last year's the drop off, it was 24 appearances. Do you think there's in the back of the mind for Pochettino and Clearlake that we need to get a right back in as an understudy initially, but somebody to properly challenge him to see if he's going to come through? Because at the moment, last season, he didn't really have anybody to challenge him. Azpilicueta's club legend, but his legs are gone. He's not the right wing back. He's not going to be bombing forward, and if he does bomb forward, he needs somebody to fill in the gap for him to give him enough time to get back. But could you see that might be potentially a reason why Malo Gusto has been brought through?
Oh yeah, definitely. And like you say, you have the utility player there in Chalobah as well, who can fill in a right back. So in terms of this season, I think we're okay in that position. Maybe just about okay, because I actually think Reece James, I think it's his knee again. When before in the World Cup,
Yeah,
it was
sorry,
his knee.
it was his knee. Yeah.
Yeah, and during the World Cup, I'm sure he didn't want to have surgery on his knee as well. So it's probably something that's looming over. I don't know if you remember when JT used to play. He was playing through with injuries and injections, and eventually he had to have surgery on, I think his metatarsal or something like that. And
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he had to get the painkillers.
Yeah. So I think if it's something that you rehab isn't working, and you're still feeling that same discomfort, and this is only preseason, it's just training. When it's coming to even if it is one game a week, maybe 85 minutes, someone clashes you right in the knee. Impact injuries can just make it 10 times worse, sort of thing. So I think he does need to have that surgery and recover. However, looking at where we are in the season, it's a tough decision,
It is.
to decide.
It is, but do you not think because it is just a pre-season tour, who cares? Like, he could always join the club. You can always fly out towards the end for the last 2 weeks. Like, if he misses the first 2, like, he gets clearance from the medical team. Like, this is just precautionary. It's not
Yeah.
just one plane that flies there once a month and then you got to wait around. He can just hop on a plane and join them and meet them up there. Like, it's not the end of the world. And I'd rather
Yeah.
have him ready for Liverpool.
Yeah, that's not my issue. My issue is the fact that is this going to be an ongoing thing to alter his career? He could go on to be one of England's greatest defenders or fullbacks in Premier League history if he injury free, even one of Chelsea's best ever players.
No, yeah.
But the problem is, he if he's gonna be injured all the time, that diminishes. You've seen it with the likes of, we had so much faith and hype in Loftus-Cheek, and look what he turned out to be, or Hudson-Odoi and other players who've, just been riddled with injury every time they've played, and it's sort of like diminished their career. Not saying that Reece, those players are on Reece James's level, but Reece James brings a certain performance of level. He's almost borderline world class when he plays well, and that's kind of an issue when he's available only maybe 10, 20 games a season because he's injured all the time. So I don't know. I don't know what
It's
the
only
answer
just,
is.
to be fair, it's only just the one season when it's been like that. Like, every other season, he's made over 35 appearances.
And do you know what the worst thing was about last season is we relied on him so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think it was
that's another
apparent.
and I think that was probably again the injury and the balance between that is he was rushed back. Potter relied on him heavily. I mean, Potter really did, didn't he? He rushed him back and he, put him for the big game. You remember? I mean, it was just and then. But the way that he plays football, I don't know if you noticed, like he just didn't quite have that confidence to
He
bomb.
didn't have. He didn't have a spring in his step.
Yeah,
he didn't have.
there was
Yeah,
something
he was
about
missing
it.
a bit of.
He couldn't quite get
Yeah,
that
and it's
1%.
and just add this as someone who knows playing through injury, it is a mental block sometimes.
Legend.
It's not about it's a physical thing because your body feels like I can do that, but then you think if I do that I might tweak something, so let me try slow down or maybe let me save my energy for that one time where I really need to do this sort of thing. And it could be that sort of thing, where he is playing through pain and injections or whatever, and he's just thinking, let me just get through the game, let me not overcommit and pull my hamstring in the first 15 minutes or something. You saw it with, I think, Chilwell, was it last season, or was it? Yeah, I think it was against Juventus where he took a player on and then he tried to sprint off. As soon as he did, he felt his hamstring go and then he was out for ages.
Yeah.
Was that game? Yeah, I think it
was. It was Salts. Was it Salts? It was like a
Milan.
Pointless. Do you mean the one where he actually got injured? It was like a pointless.
Yeah, it was the Champions League game at home. I remember.
I think it was Salts, wasn't it? When we already through or something, and he just.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And that's just when he came back, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's less to be seen, but maybe it is a sensible thing, and just taking that extra time away. To get him ready for January, because not January, sorry, to get him ready for Liverpool, just because we don't want another Kante situation. He's out for 4 weeks, 6 months later. I'd rather much have him ready for Liverpool than Wrexham in Pittsburgh, wherever it's going to be. Do you know what I mean? So, fingers crossed that is just purely just precautionary, just get him ready and keep him here and get him ready for Liverpool game. You mentioned a player. I'll move on to another player there who, again, has injury issues. He was a player that was heavily rumoured to be joining Bayern Munich about 4 years ago now, and the club went, no, we're going to lock him in place, give him £150,000 a week, despite the fact he's only played a handful of games. And it's looking like more and more likely here now that Callum Hudson-Odoi is likely to leave the club in this transfer window. Went on loan to Bayer Leverkusen last season. Wasn't particularly successful, which is a shame. And we was looking at potentially joining Nottingham Forest at this point, but then it's like going to Fulham. But now Willian has signed another year extension. Temba's favourite player. Willian signed an extension at Fulham. So it's looking like potentially the only other clubs really are, Nottingham Forest, I think, in for him, and I believe some Saudi clubs are in for him as well. It's a shame because that's clearly a player that had so much potential, but again, it was ruined by injuries again. Like we're kind of short in that right wing side of things. So could Callum Hudson-Odoi, in theory, could he be retained if we don't sign a right winger to support Madueke? Could he be somebody that we keep and just say, okay, we're just going to keep you in and see how things go? Because if he is fit, he does like to take players on. Do you think it's something you want to see give him a chance, Charlie?
I like the player. I like him coming off the bench, but I just don't think he wants to do that anymore. And I think you've got to respect that from his point of view, that he wants first team football. I just don't think he's quite good enough to play for our first team. And with Madueke ahead of him, I don't see him getting much of a chance, to be honest. And I think that's kind of the way it's going to go. Tem, what do you reckon?
Yeah, well, I think you all know what I thought of Callum Hudson-Odoi. I genuinely thought this guy was going to make leaps and bounds, but that injury definitely halted him back. If you watch back, just quick compilations, even at him that pre-season, you see the burst of acceleration he had back then, you look at him now. It's completely different player, and it kind of course he also has technique. He is a very good passer of the ball. If you've seen him, he often switching the ball left and right very easily, which a lot of wingers don't actually do. But yeah, in terms of the ball, he's confident. But when you need to beat a man, his dribbling's maybe not as good as it needs to be, because I think often when he was younger, he did rely on that extra burst of speed he had. He's not quite elegant as Eden Hazard, where, he can use his body to hold off defenders and, sort of slowly take it round them. Whereas, he needed that quick acceleration, and obviously with something like that, you need your Achilles to be at optimum, working, whatever it
level.
is, optimum working level sort. And I saw on his somewhere on an article that he had to actually get a psychologist to help him start running again on his feet, because he thought on his tiptoes, because he thought he was going to get injured every time he did that. So it sort of also shows you what these injuries can do to footballers mentally instead of just physically. So in terms of everything we said, I think he does need to just get back to playing football and rebuild his career, really. Do I think he'll ever make it back at Chelsea? Probably not. I think that injury, he's just never gotten. He's never shaken it off, and he looks a completely different player. I think the best he could probably do is maybe move back to right wing back sort of role, because he does have good range of passing. He does occasionally take his man on, and he didn't look so bad at wing back. It's just he needs to up his work rate.
I thought taking on was one of the things that I used to enjoy about him. I used to, when he used to come off the bench, there was something about it, that you knew that it was going to offer something different, and he could take a player on, get to the byline, put a cross in, do something, and that's kind of what is kind of disappointing, is that he just never quite developed the game. And I don't know whether it was our fault that we just didn't give him the chance, or whether it was, who knows? It just didn't quite happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens when it comes to Callum Hudson-Odoi, but I have a feeling he's probably not going to be in the squad come the end of August time. Dale says he's just looking at James's injury history, float back here, since the 21-22 season. He's injured his hamstring on 4 occasions for a cumulative time of 96 days missed, and injured his knee on 2 occasions for a missed time of 95 days. That's 6 months out of. I mean, no, that's good. Look, Dale's gone back and done that. He's done more than I did, but that's 6 months in 2 years. Quite a lot to miss out. A lot of football, I think, when you do actually think about that. So we, the right wing back thing. I think Callum Hudson-Odoi is missing. Like you said, he's a little bit scared to take players on. No other way. It does need an area that we want to improve in. Sterling, I think, is better coming in off the left because he likes to cut in on his right foot. A player that we have been linked to is Ryan Cherky from Lyon. Is that, I think, he's a French player, French under 21 player. Again, another youthful player we're looking to bring in through. He's had comparisons to Hazard, I believe. I think just because of a similar style of play in terms of low centre of gravity, ability to turn the player. He's a left-footed player as well, so he would be playing in off the right, similar to Madueke. It just adds an extra dimension. I mean, I'll go to Temba on this one here. I mean, Charlie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Temba might know more about Ryan Cherky than you might. Would that be a fair assumption to make?
I don't play FIFA. No, I'm only joking. But yeah, Tem will tell you all about him.
No, to be honest, this is a player I haven't seen too much, and I've only seen highlights and comps and people's opinions. From what I understand, he's a very good dribbler of the ball, a very, very low center of gravity. He is a bit. He is Algerian, so I don't know if you see those type of players. They're very, very nimble, like someone like Fekir and Mahrez. Very, very nimble on the ball, and close, tight control. Take it one way, take it the other way, and apparently he's extremely two-footed. But I haven't seen his stats enough to say if he's good enough for Chelsea. But at that age, why would you need a backup? A 19-year-old is still developing his game. He needs game time. So Madueke is another youngster. You need an experienced player, if anything, to get the best out of Madueke, because I don't think his end product is good enough. And from what I've seen from Cherky or however you pronounce his name, it doesn't look like he's exactly blowing up numbers either.
I mean, he's not got a lot of goals, but he has made a lot of appearances for somebody so young. So he turns 20 in August, and in the league for Lyon, he's made 83 appearances so far before the age of 20. So he's played a lot of football, but maybe a move to the Premier League might, kickstart him onwards. That working with bigger and better managers, better players every week. An option that I don't think many people are considering, and I think Charlie mentioned it earlier in the podcast, is we need the experience, need some of these players, and he can play in that position. Is Bernardo Silva, at Manchester City at the moment, but wants to leave the club. Rumours potentially of him joining Barcelona, but if they've got issues there, could Bernardo Silva be a player that we should consider in that position?
No. No, I
Why?
will say that, and I'll say that because I think it maybe because of Raheem Sterling, but that sort of thing of you've been there, you've done it all. What is there to achieve? I think what this Chelsea team needs is a lot of first timers. Much like Arsenal, you saw the drive they took to actually try and get close to Man City. Maybe they didn't have enough in the end, but even Liverpool, when they first challenged Man City, it was all about we haven't done it before. Let's go and do it. Our main players, the core that you're building, we need to. We are going to bring this winning culture, as in like a together collectiveness. The first time winners sort of thing, and that's how you build the mentality. I don't think you build. You maybe do need an experienced winner, but I don't see what Bernardo Silva gets from leaving Man City to come to Chelsea.
Money.
Apart from a big paycheck. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, money.
And that's the sort of thing you don't want to do right now.
If Lukaku potentially is going to go one way towards Juventus, potentially, Juventus have a player that we were interested in a couple of seasons back, Federico Chiesa. Like, that's a player we could potentially take on. He does play in off the right wing. That's a player we could have in that area. He's not won it all. He's more experienced. He is, again, still very young. I still believe he's under the age of 25. But, I think, Charlie, you're a champion for a player like Bernardo Silva. So what do you think you have juxtaposed to temper?
Well, I don't even know why we need this guy, to be honest. So we've got so many players in these positions. Well, I thought,
but we need experience, don't we? But we don't really have any people that come in off the right, like Mudryk and Sterling.
This
They're
guy's
off the
20
left.
years old, right? At the beginning of this window, we said we wanted a goalkeeper, a midfielder, and a striker, and at the moment we've got none. So why don't we focus on getting a midfielder, a striker, and a goalkeeper, like we said we were going to do, instead of going, oh, that bloke's available and he's 19, he's 40 million, and we get all excited about these players that no one's ever seen play in the Premier League, a little bit like Mudryk, like without being offensive to him, and we get all excited about it. But at the end of the day, we fail because we don't have what we actually needed to win a football match.
Yeah,
right. And like you might laugh at me, and a lot of people do. Most times I walk out the house. But the thing is, it's true, right? All you need is what we said we were going to do at the beginning of the window was a goalkeeper, a midfielder, and a striker. And so far we've got none of them. So why don't we go and get them? Instead of like going, oh, let's go and get a left winger from Brazil, or let's go and get some, whatever. It doesn't matter. We need what we need. We need what we need for this team, and this is our team. This isn't a game of Football Manager where you just go and buy players and try and make it all work together. We buy the players that we need for the team, and who are going to win us trophies and going to build the passion and the everything else, and that's what kind of annoys me. Is it Caicedo was the one that we all thought was the midfield. We still haven't done it.
I think it is a matter of time. I think it will happen. I can't see it falling through at this stage. It's just agreeing payments, and I think we need Caicedo to be like, okay, sell me now. We need him to put his foot down and request a transfer to get out. He's been promised it, but he needs like official things. So look, they're offering you 80 million. Just take 80 million for me. Jesus Christ. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I just don't quite understand the strategy here at all. It just seems like another mess. We seem to be. Everybody seems. Every time I read the newspaper, every day I read the newspaper every day, and we read the newspaper, and it goes, "Oh, Chelsea have got a different strategy. They're looking a bit more. There's something a bit more. There's a bit more sort of." A bit more organisation in this transfer window, if you like, something like going on, but we haven't done anything yet. We've just sold a load of players.
We have it's like what Dale says there. We got our striking options are Armando Broja is coming back from fitness, Nicholas Jackson as well, and then also Nkuku he can play as a striker, but I believe he's probably going to come in as a number 10. We can play this position. I think you and I, Charlie, said that what potentially might happen is we stick with these players that can play in a striker position. Then come January time, we go big on Ivan Toney. when he's available and can play. It's like I said, we physically can't buy him because we're not allowed to at this point. Like no club can buy Ivan Toney at this point because he's banned from all football-related activity. But that is an option. We don't have Europe. We've only got the league. We could reassess and see where we are. Like if we're sat at 10th again, and it's the same as I really, really hope we're not sat in 10th this like halfway through the season come January, and we've scored 25 goals. But that's an option there. I think the striker situation, has been bypassed. And I think if you are looking to add somebody now, you'd need to add somebody properly experienced. And I mean like age 30 plus. But I can't see it happening. But the issue that I think we're having, and I think all three of us can agree, because I'll digress and I'll move on for this, is the striking, is the goalkeeper situation. And, is Kepa good enough? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's been a lot of times when we thought Kepa he's not making it, and then he just seems to find his way back to being the number one. But he just isn't, is he, Tim? Like I can't see why we're not linked to some. Like we've lost Andre Onana. Like that was a player that we were linked to. Like Andre Onana's now not happening. He's going to join Manchester United probably tomorrow. That's another player that we lost. Like, and there's not very many goalkeepers out there. But is Kepa good enough to get us into the top four?
No.
Really?
Top five? No.
No.
I don't think so. But to counter my own point, I think if we win 5-6 more games last season, we probably do get into the top four. And that's not down to Kepa, really. That was more down to our attack. I think some of the games we really needed our attack to show up because we did not concede that many goals. I think it was 38 overall or 40 or something.
Yeah,
but it was one of the lowest in the league.
We had one of the best defenses in the league. We just
but if you're asking me, do I trust him over a season? Hell no. But in terms of the stats he pulled up last season, I can't actually blame him, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's down to the defense or down to him.
I reckon it's more so to do with the defense because every time that we watched him play and he was in goal, we thought clubs will shoot from 30 yards because he's not that great from long.
Yeah, and I fully expect
in Sesko goal for Brighton. Like he could have got there. He could have.
Ward-Prowse. I mean, just
that Ward-Prowse was shocking, absolutely shocking. I'm glad I went to the toilet and didn't see that. But it's true. It's true. It's sort of the thing of when I can't remember, I was having this conversation about would you take De Gea over Kepa, and I was just thinking to myself, De Gea can pull you a 9 out of 10 performance. Kepa will never give you a 9 out of 10 performance. It's very, very rare. He will not bail you out of games.
Do we sign De Gea?
No. I don't think so. But it's even to just show you the levels of, you've seen a lot of Man United fans claim De Gea's terrible and whatever. The thing is, De Gea could pull you out of games, or he could lose you a game during a mistake. The problem with Kepa is he just leaves a lot more to be desired of. You'll see a goal go in and you think, oh, he could have got there. Whereas De Gea, it's world class or it's a calamity. Do you know what I mean? So maybe, the highs and lows.
Change your screensaver settings.
Yeah, I know. I just keep forgetting. The highs and lows are very big in between. But even the season, if you remember, was it under Mourinho where they got top 4? And I think De Gea was, or top 10, or I can't remember. But De Gea basically single-handedly saved them out of 10, 12 games that season.
When they come second, I think, that year.
Yeah, I can't remember where they finished. But he was tremendous that season. Do you trust Kepa enough to think if we're playing badly to get top 4, do you think he's the guy, or top 5 as it will be next season? Do you think he's that guy to get us there if we're not playing well defensively? Or say Silva gets injured or something and, you're facing a lot of shots now and Chilwell or whoever's at the back is maybe not having the best game. Do you think he's good enough to keep us in games?
No.
Which
makes me think, Charlie, we should sign De Gea because he's on a free.
Well, it sounds stupid. We got to sign someone. It doesn't matter. It might even not have to be a number 1. But if this is the man next season, there's no Mendy anymore. We are relying on this guy all of a sudden, and what's behind him? I mean, they flew to America today or yesterday, and I looked at the list, and there's 4 guys as well underneath Kepa.
Yeah,
most of whom I've never heard of. I mean,
I think one of them was like Jamie Cumming or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, Jamie Cumming. Yeah.
This is
Nathan Baxter still with the club, or has he left?
I think he might have left.
But this is what we're walking into, and that someone has to be signed, even if it's a Caballero, even if it's just a Neil Sullivan or someone. It's got. I'm sure they must a Mark Schwarzer or something. You know, because what happens if Kepa gets injured? Christ, I mean, this is going to be a Frodo Grodos 1997 moment. I mean,
I think we're relying on. I mean, we're harping on that point maybe a bit too much about injuries, but in terms of number 2, I don't think you need a big, strong number 2. I think you just need a competent number 2. However, because we don't score that many goals, and this is another issue I was gonna mention about the fact that we don't put the ball. You know, we don't even create that many chances first and foremost, but we can't seem to put the ball in the net. We're going to have to be very free-flowing going forward if we're not to make the goalkeeper situation stand out. You know, we'll need to score maybe 2-3 goals. And where do you see the goals coming from, was my question.
Well, if we'd have retained Timo Werner with a change of the offside rule, it would have been from Timo Werner, but we sold him mid-season too soon, unfortunately, because I was arguing this point in the WhatsApp group that we should re-sign Timo Werner as the number 9, because he would have had, I think it was 7 additional goals when they've been ruled out under the terms of the new rule. Anyway, I digress, but we've reached that hour mark, so we'll try and wrap things up there. So, so much to talk about. It's completely flown by. Temba, welcome back. Charlie, thank you very much for joining us this week. To everybody that submitted comments, Dale especially, sending there. I can see Silver T put me. So thank you very much for joining there. So we'll share your comment there. And make sure, please you hit that like and subscribe button. We really, really appreciate it. We want to get to 100 subscribers before the season starts. That means we can have our own little web link at the top and we can just share that, and that would be fantastic. We're live on YouTube and TKS TV, so we really, really appreciate you for joining us this week. We Talk Chelsea will be back next week at 9:30 p.m. where hopefully Caicedo will have signed. But if not, chaps, see you next week. Take care. And we'll be at Wrexham. We can discuss that. Yes. Take care. Speak to you soon. Thanks for joining. Take care. Bye-bye.